If you have a question, please just stand and I'll call on you and then you can ask that question. Go ahead. I can sit down.
Right for the school to expel me or suspend me because I said something that they don't agree with, or get fired from the job.
Did you hear the question?
Yeah, I did. I think the law is very clear.
I'm sorry, can you repeat it briefly for those who didn't hear?
So the question was, and correct me if I'm not correct in paraphrasing your question. What are the limits for free speech on campus or as an employee?
As an employee of a college campus.
And also as an employee of college campus. So you have to see what is the policy of your university on free speech. And there are case laws on that. But I believe what applies to a college campus applies to a company, and the freedom for you to express yourself are guided by the guidelines of the work environment that you are in. But I assure you, you should not feel that you're limited to any restrictions that just because you're Muslim. And if you feel that you are being targeted because of your ethnic identity or Islamic identity, contact us immediately. We have 55 full-time attorneys nationwide working for you. So call CARE immediately. When you're in doubt, call CARE. Don't say or do anything if you are not sure. Make sure that you speak to an attorney, consult, and design your plan. But I will not allow people, as Sister Linda said, limit my thoughts or speech because of my faith. And I think the environment around you should determine and give you a clue what kind of freedom you have there. If you are treated differently because you're Muslim, the law is on your side.
Yes, sister.
So I'm a college student, and oftentimes bigots violate Minneapolis, Ben Shapiro come, and so what advice would you give us how should we respond to that?
How to respond to bigoted guest speakers who come to a college campus.
So I get protested, just to be clear. The protests are usually pretty weak. They're not as impressive as they think they're going to be. So there's different ways to respond. They have a right to speak at your school, and you have a right to protest them. That's number one. So you have a right to protest them. I think a more productive way to counteract when you get the Milos and the Richard Spencers types is to do a counter event in the same day. 7 o'clock, 7 o'clock. They want to have a racist bigot, then you do a solidarity event somewhere else and build, and I promise you, you will have 5 times as many people as they have. I've seen college students do it. I've helped college students organize them. Show the school that you can organize and out-organize the bigots and the racists, and especially the conservative clubs on your school who think it's a good idea to bring people who are so distasteful and hateful. But at the end of the day, and I know that people in the left disagree on this issue, my personal opinion is they have a right to speak and you have a right to protest them. Some people will say they have no right to speak, but then again, if you will say that Milo has no right to speak, guess what's going to happen? The conservatives are going to say Sister Linda doesn't have a right to speak. Brother Nihad doesn't have a right to speak. So you actually could impact other speakers from the social justice movements based on how we treat one side. Let them speak. Knock themselves out with the hate. Guess what? We're going to have another event and we're going to bring people from the other side and we're going to have a productive conversation about whatever the issue is. So that's what I recommend as a way to counter.
Yes, sister.
Okay, so I'm the president of the MSA, and I said we had Sun Awareness Week, and I've said things during Sun Awareness Week where members of my MSA and people in the college community who are funding our MSA were not happy with, and they could just cancel full funding, and I don't want that to happen if I say something they don't like. So what's the balance between not alienating people who are helping you out and speaking out?
Can you repeat your question?
So the question is, when you're a head of an MSA and you're saying things that maybe your school community doesn't agree with, or maybe even your fellow MSA members, and there's a potential risk of pulling funding, it would be helpful to get an example of something that you said, because then I would help me. Like, is there something that give me an example of something?
Like I was just talking about like Sharia and what it actually means and jihad and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm. And they thought it was too, like, spicy for them. That's what they say about me, I don't know. This is what I'll say to that. Sometimes we have to make really hard decisions. And the hard decisions mean, do you stick with your principles and your convictions and what you believe is right? Or do you change your principles and convictions because you worry about somebody pulling their money? And as someone who ran a nonprofit organization for 15 years and now runs another one, if a donor is going to tell me, here's $10,000, but in order for you to keep my $10,000 or get another $10,000, you can't say this, this, and this, I give that $10,000 right back. And sometimes it could be detrimental to an organization. It's just the balancing act of making sure that money doesn't own you and how you operate, right? And that you stay as a whole person. And I know a lot of MSAs in this country who are literally working with zero, literally. They don't even have a budget. There are schools, as you know, where the MSA's got to do bake sales, literally, where there is actually no funding from the schools. Like I've spoken at community colleges for free because the kids don't have a budget. So you can do a lot with a little. And don't let anybody control what you say. Of course, if you say something that, I mean, I don't have the exact example, but if you're trying to educate people about Islam or trying to clarify different terms that are misunderstood, and someone says don't do that because it's too controversial, that's a problem for me. Just got to make some hard decisions.
I'm going to jump in really quick and interject a quick story. So I live in a very redneck area. They call it the Redneck Riviera. And we were meeting with the superintendent. He said, honey, you think you're going to explain Sharia up here? And I said, well, sir, if that's what they want to hear about. He said, if you use the word Sharia up here, sugar, that's license to kill. So sometimes
that's actually funny.
All right, to Sister Linda, you keep referring to being unapologetically Muslim. Do you believe the majority of Muslims in North America are apologetic?
I get all the spicy questions. I get in trouble every day, so it's fine. Might as well just keep going. You know, if I didn't have hope in the Muslim community, I really wouldn't be doing this work. I'm trilingual, I got a lot of other opportunities, but I actually have hope in our community. And I actually have hope in the generation that comes after me, which in fact is unapologetically Muslim. They are active in ways that I've dreamed of my whole life. When I grew up, I was basically dreaming about this generation. Like I was like visualizing who you were going to be and what you were going to look like and what organizations you were going to be a part of, and thinking about the activism that I see. I mean, everywhere I go, every protest I go to, I see young sisters in hijab everywhere, and I love it, and it's beautiful. So I have hope that there are unapologetic Muslims in our country. We do have a problem with apologetic Muslims. That's just the problem we have. And we have to just own it and say that they're there. And I wanted to give a quick example that Brother Nihad gave. And I got in trouble from the Muslim community about this too. I had like a couple of uncles call me, and Nihad wasn't one of them. And he's not an uncle anyway, but you know what I mean. So remember when the Charlie Hebdo thing happened? That was outrageous. I don't care what Charlie Hebdo was drawing. People shouldn't die. That's just fact of the matter. In my opinion, if you were outraged that Charlie Hebdo was engaging in, you know, offending our prophet or whatever, Charlie Hebdo and those publishers at his company should not have died that day. So damn those terrorists to hell who thought it was a good idea to go and kill at the Charlie Hebdo publishing company. That's unquestionable. Okay. But then there was a campaign that was like, just we Charlie, right? Remember that? I am Charlie. So I went on national television and I basically said, look, this terrorist attack, like any other terrorist attack, outrageous. Unacceptable. And I said to people, I don't condemn this as a Muslim. I condemn it as a human being. Because any basic, decent human being is going to say that the killing of people in the way that it happened at the Charlie Hebdo Publishing Company is outrageous. It doesn't even take much. You just got to be a decent human being. The guy said to me, "Just we Charlie." I said, "Oh, hold on a second. Don't take me somewhere. This act of terror against Charlie Hebdo, outrageous and unacceptable, but I will not say, just we Charlie." I'm not going to say that. Charlie Hebdo was a racist, homophobic, anti-black, anti-Muslim, anti-Semitic publication. And I'm not a racist or a homophobe or an anti-Semite or an Islamophobe. So I can stand up against terrorism without having to be thrown into a narrative where I have to agree that Charlie Hebdo was this great publication that we should have all supported. I would have boycotted them, just like we have a right to boycott them. So what I'm saying to you is oftentimes I find Muslims in our community that are trying to find every way to apologize for something they had nothing to do with. Take responsibility for your own actions. And when you come out to condemn acts of terror, do it as a decent human being, right? Because those acts of terror are acts against humanity. Right? They have nothing to do with Islam. And the more that we reinforce this apologizing business, we keep basically associating ourselves with terrorists. We have nothing to do with those people. They don't call you up and ask you for your opinion when they want to do crazy things. So why do we always have to feel like we got to speak on their behalf? Damn them to hell is my thing. What do you want me to say? And then the last thing that I'll say about I have this problem where I say to people, when someone asks me, "Where are you to condemn terrorism?" You know what? That question is inherently bigoted. What do you actually think? You actually think that I'm just chilling being great? What? So you already have stripped me of my humanity by asking me if I condemn acts of terror and violence against innocent people. So we shouldn't even allow people to ask us those questions, because we would never ask Christians those questions. We would never ask Jews those questions. We would never ask atheists those questions. We wouldn't even ask individual Islamophobes those questions. We don't blame Islamophobes for people who are getting killed around the world. We understand, we are much more intellectual people. So even that question is inherently bigoted, and when we keep answering that question, we reinforce the frame and keep associating ourselves with something that we try to keep disassociating ourselves with. So be careful when you have those conversations. And may Allah guide those apologetic Muslims to become unapologetically Muslim. That's what we need.
We'll do the last question, and that'll be it for today. Do websites like Canary Mission cross the line from free speech to liberal? How should a young professional applying to graduate school or jobs respond to questions about our profile on Canary Mission?
Has anybody not gotten a job from being on Canary Mission? Has anyone not gotten accepted to a school? I don't know not one person on that list that isn't a successful Muslim. Honestly, wallahi, I'm not even exaggerating. Stop being distracted by the Islamophobes. Your track record speaks for itself. Your academic track record speaks for itself. Your activism speaks for itself. Do not let anonymous websites like Canary Mission scare you out of activism. That is exactly the mission of Canary Mission. Literally. They want you to not be active so you avoid getting on Canary Mission. You should be honored if you or your friend is on that. Because guess what? You were making a difference. What you were doing is so impactful against the opposition that they thought they had to put your picture up there. Remy Kenazi is a poet. He's on there. He's doing world tours. He might have gotten promoted by Canary Mission for all we know. There is really no... Dr. Hatem Bezian is on it. Who cares? It's actually, they're allowed to do that. They're allowed to put fake stuff about us. They write stuff about CARE all the time. Go look, you Google CARE, you Google me, and you won't even think I'm the same person based on what they say about me online. So I would say to you that I don't think that we need to draw a line anywhere, because we don't have time and resources to work with little nobodies at Canary Mission. Keep doing you, keep speaking truth to power, because one day you're going to realize what their mission was all along, and then you're going to regret the things you missed out on because they put so much doubt and fear in your hearts. And that is their whole mission. Do not let them put doubt and fear in your hearts, and stay doing what you do. And if you get on Canary Mission, mashallah, all the power to you. Great.